let's go into what has been released and what is still yet to come. As I look at the stuff that has, in the declassified documents of Russiagate, it confirms what many of us have already known. Are you surprised at anything at the media not reporting any of this? I mean, we've known a lot of this, but now the media is absolutely silent on it. And people seem to be deleting posts and no longer commenting online. What's happening?
Yes, I am not surprised that the mainstream media is refusing to cover this. And if they do mention it, their approach is to try to diminish the effect and the impact of the revelations, the historic revelations that were found in the documents that we declassified and released, or to try to bring voice to detractors and critics who also just say, oh, well, this is bizarre or this is crazy. But when you actually look at the coverage and you look at some of the comments and the quotes that the mainstream media may be choosing to publish or highlight, they're not actually getting after the very specific pieces of evidence that were released that quote people like John Brennan, who was the CIA director, and James Clapper, who was Obama's director of national intelligence. They are not giving voice to the intelligence professionals who, in these reports that we released, were protesting against the very malicious actions that people like Brennan and Clapper were taking at President Obama's direction to create this intelligence assessment that was filled with falsehoods. They're not giving voice to these intelligence professionals because they recognize that it would push forward a very inconvenient truth for the mainstream media because it exposes their complicity in pushing this lie and this hoax from not only day one, but throughout President Trump's entire first administration.
And all of these people are still, Brennan, Clapper, they have been the source on so many things, and they're in with the media. And I wonder if this is just part of more of the same, that they're asking them, is there anything to this? And they say, no, there's not. In fact, it's a whatever. And then I also wonder, how many people are you surrounded by that are still part of that old system?
It's a good question. As we're finding these documents, going through them, declassifying and releasing them, we are learning more about who is actually directly involved and implicated in this. We're learning more about who may have been in the room and who was loudly protesting against it, recognizing how wrong it was. We have whistleblowers coming forward with their own documentation of their protests and their unwillingness to go along with this. So yes, there are people who are still working within the intelligence community who had a hand in this. As we are identifying them, it will give us the opportunity to make sure that they and others like them who, again, are so willing to weaponize intelligence to subvert the will of the American people can no longer work in the intelligence community.
So Devin Nunes, Kash Patel, all these guys were in the last time Trump was in. This was produced in the last administration. Why didn't this come out then?
It's a good question, and it's an obvious one. I can't speak for those who were there at that time, but I've asked some of these same questions, and they were facing, I can't speak for all of them, but for Devin, for example, and for Kash, they were up against the deep state in many cases who refused to release these documents. If you remember, Mike Pompeo was President Trump's, I think he was his first CIA director, followed by Gina Haspel. I was told Gina Haspel refused to release these documents. So again, the more that we find in the documentation as whistleblowers come forward, I think the story will continue to be told about what actually happened and why it is that here we are in 2025. And again, this won't surprise many people who've been following this story very closely for years. But the fact that we have documented evidence and proof is the thing that matters, both to shine a light on the truth that this wasn't something that
right.
was in someone's imagination or concocted, but I think even most importantly, that can drive towards accountability.
So Fox News had an exclusive that said Kash Patel found thousands of sensitive documents related to the origins of the Trump-Russia probe buried in multiple burn bags in secret rooms inside the Bureau. What's a burn bag?
A burn bag is something that you'll find in many offices throughout the intelligence community, throughout these different workspaces in national security. Basically, if I have a document that's highly classified, I read it, I review it, I'm done with it. My copy can then go in the burn bag to make sure that it's not doesn't end up in the wrong hands, that there's not an unauthorized disclosure of classified information. It's a very different story, however, if you use a burn bag to try to get rid of evidence of which maybe there is only one copy of, and then hide it in a secret room in the FBI. That is a tactic, obviously, that has been used by those deep staters, these bad actors within the intelligence community to try to get rid of evidence. Another tactic that's often used is over-classifying information. This is what happened with the Steele dossier. This was already widely publicized as a discredited document. But what John Brennan did and James Clapper did as the CIA director and the Obama's director of national intelligence, they didn't want anybody to know that they used the Steele dossier as a source for this intelligence assessment that was filled with falsehoods they published in January of 2017, as well as other really, really shoddy intelligence sources that would not be acceptable to be used on any topic because they were not deemed credible. They wanted to hide all of this from members of Congress, perhaps, who were reading this, and the American people, and President Trump, then President-elect Trump at that time. And so they overclassified it in a way that there were less than 10 people who could access it. Jeez. And then they locked up the only hard copy documents. This document did not exist on digits. The document that actually exposed, this was the document that we released. Right. They locked that document up and the 5 copies that existed in a safe. And the first time it had been seen, certainly in public, but even by many within the government, was when we released it about a week ago.
Sunday, John Radcliffe said that there's more declassification of intelligence coming out that shows how deep this went. He said it's stunning. Any idea on the timeline of that?
It's going through the declassification process right now. I expect it to be released very soon. I think the document will speak for itself. And once again, it will, I think, confirm what a lot of people have already known to be true, but it'll connect a lot of the dots that have not been revealed in public before.
Are you sensing let's see, Mark Elias stopped posting on X. Brennan has lawyered up. John Kerry has made his account private. Peter Strzok deleted his entire X history. Are you sensing they feel the walls are closing in?
In my view, that's the only way that I can read this situation. Those who are truly innocent would not be taking those kinds of actions. And once again, this is why it's so important to declassify this information, to get the truth out, because it's something that for anyone who is mildly objective is irrefutable and undeniable. And can be used and is currently being reviewed by the Department of Justice to bring about accountability for those involved.
We were talking before we went on the air, and I said, I'm struggling with my job right now because it at times doesn't seem like it's worth it. It makes any difference at all because I don't know what I believe in. I don't know what's true anymore. Tulsi, I don't know, I can't sit here and on the air and talk about problems if there's not a solution. It feels insane. It feels insane. I keep doing the same thing over and over again, beating the head against the wall and saying, here's proof, and nothing happens. Do you sense that? Do you think the people around you understand how what danger the country is in right now because they just don't believe there's justice on any front?
Well, first, Glenn, let me just tell you how important your voice is. I think I'm serious. I'm not just patronizing you. It is your voice and voices like yours where you have the ability to reach and impact people from all political stripes, different backgrounds, different walks of life across the country, who are not paying as close attention. I'm just going to keep talking here. Who are not paying as close attention. Who are not paying as close attention to these things in the way that you and your team are, and your ability to communicate. The first challenge and opportunity is to be able to communicate to the American people why they should care about this at all.
Right.
What the implications of what we have released and exposed truly are. Not just for President Trump, not just for Republicans or for Democrats, but for the integrity of our democratic republic. And the tactics that are being used by the deep state and have been used in order to, in this case, essentially subvert the will of the American people because, President Obama and his cohort were not happy that President Trump got elected. So the first thing is being able to really communicate clearly the implications of this on our republic. The second piece of this, yes, it is the accountability piece. And I understand the frustration. But our system is set up in the way that it is by our visionary founding fathers. What we have to do is fulfill our duty, focused on the Constitution, and providing this mechanism for accountability to take place, and doing what the American people really have done best since the founding of our country, which is recognizing the power in each of our voices to make sure that we are calling for that necessary action to begin to restore that trust.
But I'm sure you can relate. I mean, Dan Bongino posted a cryptic message on X the other day.
I read it.
Yeah, he said, it shocked me. What I found out at my time at the FBI has shocked me down to the core. We cannot run a republic like this, and I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. I'm not expecting you to answer for him, but have you felt that way when you've gotten being there?
I have seen up close and personal the tactics that are used by those who care more for themselves, their ambition, their job, their influence, their political interests, their selfish, self-serving interests than they care about the Constitution. That every single one of these law enforcement and intelligence community professionals swear an oath, just like I have, both in uniform in the military and as a member of Congress and as Director of National Intelligence, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. This is why what we are doing matters so much. So yes, I have my own frustrations, trust me, but my resolve is focused and is rooted in my love for our country and my belief in the values and principles that our country was founded upon, and therefore the responsibility that I carry to do something about that which we are revealing, that which I am seeing and experiencing firsthand. It is a heavy responsibility, but it's also an awesome one, and I spend every day doing my best to fulfill it.
We've talked before, and I've said to you, you are in the second most dangerous job, I think, in the nation. President Trump is in the most dangerous job in the nation, and I think, you're working around some, people that do this kind of stuff for a living, and we pray for your safety every night. Let me switch subjects here for just a second. Last night I did a show on the coming insurrection, the cabal of socialists and Islamists and anarchists that are looking to destabilize and overthrow the Western world. And it's clear that's what's happening right now. And in the middle of the show, I wondered, why hasn't Antifa been labeled a terror organization yet? Why aren't we going after people for terror? Is this not terror, what they're trying to do?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because I released several documents back in May that really laid out the foundational documents and strategy that the Biden administration used in labeling groups and individuals as domestic violent extremists. You remember this.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And, it was like, hey, if parents are angry that or worried that their kids may get the COVID vaccine at school without their approval, they may be a potential domestic violent extremist. We had the radical traditionalist Catholics, the then FBI under Obama. I mean, these are examples of what they did. But what was also interesting was how they diminished Antifa under the Biden administration, downplaying the threat that they posed, again, to the safety and security of our communities. The thing that really you really touched on and pointed to that doesn't get focused on often enough is the ideology that's driving these groups who do pose a direct threat to the fabric of our country and to the safety and security of the American people.
I mean, they don't seem to be afraid of anything. They've never really paid a price. Nobody even names them and really says what they are and what they're doing. I talked to a guy who used to be in kind of the world you live in now. And I said, can we even win this fight without naming it? And he said, we can, but not the way we're fighting. He said, they fight day and night. We fight sometimes during the day. We have to be nighttime fighters as well. I didn't want to ask him exactly what he meant by that. But would you agree with that?
I do. I think being very vigilant and being very clear-eyed about, again, the ideology that's driving a lot of these people who are here within our country, who are directly working against, again, the Constitution, the founding principles of our country, and really the American way of life. There has to be more of a focus, for example, on those who run around the streets chanting pro-Hamas mantras and calls for intifada and action. There's those who are disturbing the peace. Okay, sure. But again, it's the ideology that's driving these individuals that is quite dangerous.
One last question, kind of going back to what we were talking about, as we're talking about these extremists. I see people, the CEO of United Healthcare was shot. Everybody, 40% of youth think that was great. If Pam Bondi actually goes and charges these people, that the press is going to say, see, this is the weaponization of government, and they're going to flip the script entirely. And a lot of people will believe that because the media will carry all of that water. How concerned are we about the reaction of the left on the streets with every move that Donald Trump makes, every move like this? Does that play a role? Should it play a role in how we proceed?
We have to stand strong for the truth. We have to stand strong for justice and the Constitution and for freedom. These are things that many of these bad actors here, frankly, don't believe in. The mainstream media will do what they do. I think there is a positive here in that fewer and fewer people actually read the mainstream media. Fewer people actually believe in them. I just saw CNN and MSNBC's viewership numbers from the last week. Absolutely abysmal. There is a rise of viewers and listeners who are tuning into shows like yours and to different podcasts and the new media that really represents more, not just people with one view, but really represents real, authentic dialogue and conversation versus the filtered, agenda-filled narrative that the mainstream media pushes.
Tulsi, I'm glad we're friends. I'm glad I know you. I'm glad I live at a time where someone like you can serve. The fact that you were a Democrat, that you switched when you did, and that you have always approached everything that I've ever seen you in with the same attitude that you approached your oath for service to the military. And that gives me hope. So thank you for everything you've done.
I appreciate your friendship, Glenn. And We must be filled with hope because God is love, and in God's love is where we find hope. And it's in times like this where we lean on our faith in God's love and in knowing that if we do our best to fulfill His will, then things will work out as He has planned.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Tulsi. God bless.
Thank you.